Hi, thank you for joining me. Today I'll be talking about the origin of narcissism, the different types, how they affect you in childhood, and shape your life in adulthood. If you like my content, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Narcissism was named after the mythological figure Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection. He was handsome and proud, who, when seeing his reflection in the water for the first time, became so enamored that he couldn't stop gazing at himself, to the point of dying by the water's edge. Narcissism was first discovered as a mental disorder by Havelock Ellis in 1898. The narcissistic personality disorder became officially recognized as an illness or disorder within the last 50 years. The Oxford Dictionary defines narcissism as the habit of admiring yourself too much, especially your appearance, and a condition in which somebody is only interested in themselves, what they want, has a strong need to be admired, and a lack of understanding of other people's feelings. The Mayo Clinic describes it as a mental condition in which people have inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others. But behind the mask of extreme confidence lies a fragile self-esteem that's vulnerable to the slightest criticism. Sigmund Freud published a paper in 1914. He believed that as a child was developing, they didn't have adequate amounts of love or affection, and so in their need to replenish this, they would require it from the world, which was vital to maintaining their ideal ego, or a perfect image of oneself that the ego strives to attain. Raskin and Hall in 1979 developed the NPI, the Narcissistic Personality Inventory tool used for studying the criteria for diagnosing the disorder. There are different types of narcissism. Gabbard, 1989, Colhut, 1977, and Wink, 1991, did studies on grandiose narcissism. Lapsley and Alsma, 2006, Rose, 2002, and Ziegler-Hill, 2008, studied vulnerable narcissism. Grandiose narcissism, also known as overt, is characterized by arrogance, self-absorption, a sense of entitlement, and reactivity to criticism. Vulnerable narcissism, or covert, is characterized by a lack of self-confidence and resourcefulness, feelings of depression, and hypersensitivity to others' evaluations. Individuals with either of these narcissistic types both show entitlement and willingness to exploit others for their own gain. Bushman, 2009, and Wink in 1991 found that aggression is mainly associated with grandiose narcissism. People with higher levels of grandiose narcissism hold unrealistic high expectations of others and do not hesitate to act aggressively in order to maintain their inflated view of self. Buss and Perry, 1992, found 4 types of aggression being used as physical, verbal, anger, and hostility. Wink, 1991, found that narcissists would feel internal anger and hostility when people did not treat them with the special attention they believed they deserved. They are masters at manipulation, putting you down, name-calling, accusing you, shaming you, taking you to the brink of no return, and then bringing you back with all of their loving words. Covert narcissists are known as highly sensitive. Their traits are a combination of self-absorbed conceit, a deep need for others to accommodate them, and intense negativity when they feel offended or shunned, whether it's real or imagined, even in very insignificant matters. A clear sign for this type is their negative reaction to criticism. They tend to act negatively when feedback is delivered effectively and respectfully. They often take things highly personal and have a difficult time letting things go. They also have resentment, hostility, and narcissistic rage when they don't get their way or what they think is a lack of attention. One major trait that most narcissists seem to share is scapegoating. Nothing is ever their fault. Self-reflection means having genuine accountability, and a narcissist can't do that because they're always trying to protect their damaged ego and hiding their low self-esteem. As a result, they need a scapegoat. to take on the burdens of their responsibilities. They are masters at deflecting and quick to place blame on others for their problems, never looking within, always being the victim. The person they blame may become the enabler. The enabler is usually someone that's nominated as the scapegoat for a place to dump all of their bad feelings. Most times, at some point, anyone that's close to the narcissist will become the scapegoat, being blamed for all the narcissist's problems and hardships. These narcissists cannot relate and have genuine empathy, so they are constantly crossing boundaries. The enablers find it very hard to leave the narcissist as they keep trying to make their relationship work. If the enabler is struggling with their own self-esteem, then that will make it harder for them to leave the narcissist. Narcissists may display one or move through both of these types, the grandiose and the vulnerable, all while having scapegoaters. So what happens if you're a child being raised by a narcissist? The saddest part is that the child doesn't know anything about the world yet and is the easiest to manipulate. Childhood is meant to be carefree and about self-discovery with a very hearty dose of selflessness from the parent. It requires a frame of mind that the narcissists lack, and unfortunately, being raised by a narcissist, you are receiving conditional love and acceptance by someone who has a need for control, who is entitled, who doesn't feel empathy, who manipulates and uses your behavior against you, who uses guilt and shame to control your behavior, has a need for superiority, requires obedience, and so much more. The child won't feel seen or heard. They'll be treated more like an extension of the parent. Their emotional responses will be dismissed or blown off. They will feel that the parent is overbearing and controlling. They may feel that they need to be the parent in some situations instead of the other way around. The child will have a hard time trusting others, feeling more judged and criticized instead of accepted and loved. The child will grow up with feelings of not being good enough. They'll be frustrated, trying to seek love and approval without being able to reach it. The child is not taught to give themselves credit, and it could be hard for them to accept compliments. Narcissists have a way of being charismatic in front of others. The child will see the parent flipping a switch, being nice and kind to people outside the family, and then flipping that switch back as soon as those people are no longer around, showing the child that they are less important than other people. Teenagers will start developing more confidence and independence as they grow older, so pleasing their parents will no longer be as important to them. The narcissistic parent will view this as a personal threat and will most likely disconnect and withdraw their affection from them, which explains why the older the child gets, the more turbulent their relationship becomes. All of these behaviors are extremely damaging and can last a lifetime. So the bottom line here is the child is psychologically abused, leaving psychological scars, emotional numbing, and it can cause long-lasting debilitating effects. Just as there are different levels and extremes of narcissism, there are different levels of coping survival strategies the child develops growing up into adulthood. Because the child doesn't know anything different, it's their normal way of life, the child will grow up into adulthood believing that they are unworthy and unlovable. They believe if their own parents can't love them, then who will? Some of the common effects that follow them into adulthood are low self-esteem, depression, dysregulation of the nervous system, stress-related health problems, and anxiety. They learn to be people pleasers. They've spent their entire life trying to please their parents while putting their own needs, thoughts, and feelings to the side, which has become their natural way of life. Learning not to speak up about their concerns or desires. It can feel extremely uncomfortable trying to speak up for themselves. Also having a hard time identifying their feelings or putting their feelings into words as they never learned how to do that. They may become codependent, have crippling self-doubt, and have a hard time setting healthy boundaries because they don't know what healthy boundaries look like, making it difficult to form close personal relationships. Not having a role model for healthy connections and boundaries explains why they tend to get into narcissistic relationships as adults, repeating the cycle. The narcissistic parent showed them how to give and receive love, and it wasn't healthy. These adults have become used to having boundaries crossed and overlooked by someone who was entitled and unable to realize that others have needs too. And so in adulthood, it's easy to continue to accept people who cross boundaries because it's hard to know that it's even happening for the adult who's grown up in it. They often can become high achievers, self-sabotaging, or even both. Some people don't break the cycle of looking for validation from their parents, which persists with dissatisfaction of seeking acceptance and love. It could look like eating disorders if the parent placed importance on the way they looked, or substance abuse. If these adults have siblings, they can often look like having a difficult time connecting to their siblings. The narcissistic parent doesn't promote love and kindness between siblings. It would look more along the lines of being pinned against each other. Parental favoritism is common, favoring one child while devaluing another. Parents can choose which child will be the golden child and which will be devalued based upon their birth order, gender, personality, or which child is easier to conform, and so on. These adults could stay away from romantic relationships altogether, avoiding attachment. It can look like not talking about personal things in fear of being vulnerable, thinking that people will use your information to punish you. These adults can pick up on other people's feelings, seeing microscopic facial expressions that other people would never notice, being highly observant because they had to be hypersensitive to their narcissistic parent in order to survive. They could develop defense mechanisms that look like needing control over their space, their schedule, or making themselves invisible by focusing on the needs of others. Being raised by a narcissist, you don't get to have independence or acceptance. So in adulthood, this could look like clinging to it when you finally do have control over it in your life. You may also find that you have negative habits that you picked up learning from your narcissistic parent. It could look like if somebody annoys you, you get overly infuriated, but then apologize. You may accidentally talk too much about yourself and feel weird about it, but then don't know how to stop. If somebody corrects you, you become defensive and have trouble accepting their point. On the other side, the child may even grow up to become a narcissist themselves, imitating the behavior that they acclimated to. So they may choose a partner who is passive and agreeable in order to be controlling themselves. They may also be highly critical and very sensitive to criticism. If you find yourself stuck in any of these, don't be angry at yourself for them. This is what you were taught. Instead, feel gratefulness for the fact that you have the ability to self-assess and have empathy, something your parents didn't have. Honor yourself for that. Finding therapy to dig through all the layers of being raised this way is important to heal the wounds. You may likely need help recovering. It will help to take a look at the type of narcissistic parent you had, to look at the scale of severity, to understand the level of narcissism, how it affected you as a child and how it shaped your life. Give yourself time to grieve and mourn the loss of not having nurturing, accepting, and unconditional loving parents. Remembering that this is a mental health illness, a disorder, which produced a dysfunctional upbringing. It's not that you are unlovable or that you are the issue. Your parents are humans, and it's okay to acknowledge their flaws. as they had no problem acknowledging yours. Learning new ways to operate, setting healthy boundaries, finding your self-worth from within instead of from outside sources. Learn how to be the true and authentic you that you've been hiding because someone once told you it's not okay to be fully seen. Give up what you thought you were so you can move into who you truly are. Give yourself permission to come fully forward. It's a lifetime journey and worth the effort because there is light at the end of this tunnel. You are the one you've been waiting for. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps. My heart goes out to you. I love you all.